How's everyone doing? Today I have a horror Blu-ray update with 8 pickups, and if you've seen any of these ones, definitely let me know what you think of them and let me know which is your favorite from this horror Blu-ray haul. And first up is a Troma release, and it's for Mother's Day. This is one of their best releases in my opinion, best films. I love this one. I actually really like the remake too with Rebecca De Mornay. And they actually have commentary on, or actually rather like a clip from Charles Kaufman, the director here, talking to Darren Lynn Bousman, I believe, who was the director of the remake. They actually don't say that on here for the special features, which is surprising. They have Eli Roth on Mother's Day, and there's actually an interesting, like, quick edit that they didn't properly take out for the Eli Roth kind of interview, him talking about his love for it. And they've got audio commentary, behind the scenes videos, trailer. They have an intro as well. Charlie Kaufman, who's the director here, is the brother of Lloyd Kaufman, the founder of Troma. And this one is a kind of a dirtier, grittier, kind of backwoods, which they're self-aware, they poke fun at it a little bit, take for Mother's Day. You have the old woman there, and I enjoy the heck out of this one. It's trashy, it's sleazy, but it's a little bit smarter than you think it is. There's some commentary there. There's some kind of political and societal one with the names, and also in the fact in the old house that's all dilapidated, they have you know, TVs and junk food wrappers and just trash everywhere, and most of the rooms. And then there's commercials playing too, so that kind of plays into it. And then there's the two young boys, or they're, you know, the woman calls her, you know, they're boys and stuff, but they're grown adults, and they're basically there's these girls, these 3 girls are taking a trip into the woods, and this is shot in New Jersey. This was actually supposedly shot at the same time as the original Friday the 13th, like right nearby, so that's pretty cool. And actually in the house that they were shooting, there was a dead body found before they started shooting, so that's actually a real thing. That's not just, you know, a rumor or lore. There was a dead body found in the house, so that's kind of crazy. And yeah, the house, it looks, you know, very authentic to being, you know, a crap hole essentially. But basically the 3 girls, they're, you know, college roommates and stuff, and they get together every, you know, so every year essentially they take a trip, and this time it's in the woods, and they decide to go camping there, and they run across these 2 crazy, you know, rednecks, and they take the girls and basically torment them, and they have to fight to survive. And then the old lady right there is the mother character, and I love the ending. There's that cutaway shot, which is just awesome. I definitely dig this one. If you like trashy 80s horror, I would definitely recommend it. Better than some people would expect, especially for Troma. I'm not a huge fan of a lot of stuff they do, but I like Toxic Avenger, that kind of line, and Class of Nukem High, stuff like that. But a lot of their other ones I'm not a huge fan of. But I definitely, for me, Mother's Day is one of the best from Troma. And happy to have the Blu-ray in my collection, which I believe this is actually out of print now, and goes for a decent amount. And next up from Severin is Devil's Honey, a film by Lucio Fulci, kind of a departure from his typical stuff. A ton of special features in here. One of the things that I loved about this release was the special features. A lot of times for certain movies, I may not necessarily love the movie, but the special features make me want to keep the release because there's some amazing interviews and information, and sometimes documentaries, behind the scenes stuff. This one right here has, one of the things was they do interviews, and one of them was with the actor Brett Halsey, who is one of the co-leads here, the male actor lead. And he was talking about the lead actress, how terrible of an actress she was. He's like, I don't want to speak bad about her, but she didn't have any talent or something else she said. I was like, oh, all right, so no talent and no drive or something like that. And I was like, that's pretty hilarious. And he told a story that, you know, a lot of other people didn't like her on set, including one of the producers. And it was the job of one of the producers to take her to the airport after filming had ended. And the producer, like, hated her so much to the fact that he drove her to the airport, and when he dropped her off, he punched her in the mouth. And she called the police on him and had him arrested, I guess. And, you know, so that is a crazy thing about this. And the young actress, she is stunning, but she is a terrible actress. It's very Tommy Wiseau from The Room-esque, acting-wise. And she is, you know, it's a kind of erotic thriller. She is with this one guy who is a like a saxophone player, and he's kind of wild, out of control. And that's the thing too, the actions are just unrealistic, the dialogue's uninspired. it's really not a good movie. But there's certain things that have appeal to it, especially towards the second half of the film, where it really kind of gets going. But anyways, it's their love relationship in the beginning, the saxophone player and her. And the whole time he's expressing his love for her, and she's like, no, stop it. You're just using me for the sex. And it's just kind of absurd. And then so he ends up hitting his head, just driving around on the motorcycle. That was a whole ridiculous thing. And then the doctor, they bring him to the hospital, and the doctor tries to save him, but he can't. And so she takes revenge, you know, because she blames the doctor, and she basically kidnaps the doctor at gunpoint and chains him up. And there's a part with the dog, which they didn't explain. The dog dies, and they don't explain what happened to the dog. It's just a cutaway scene to her burying the dog. I'm like, what the F just happened? There's no explanation. She's just like, everybody that I love in my life dies. I'm like, explain what happened to the dog. I still want to know. And there's no information about it. I checked out like all the special features, like somebody please mention the dog. But yeah, so she just has him chained up and is just torturing him, and he kind of falls for her. It's kind of crazy. And then the ending is just like, oh, come on. It just, the ending was lackluster, but there was some good, you know, it's funny, the lead actor, like, basically disparages her, but there felt like there was actual chemistry, so good job acting-wise in that regard for her and him. But yeah, when she tries to deliver the lines, it's dreadful. It's a good print for it, it's a good transfer for it. The special features are amazing, lots of insight. Brett Halsey's been around for a long time. He talks about his, you know, friendship with Clint Eastwood. There's also the actress Corinne Cleary, who was in Your as well, and he actually talks about that Corinne Cleary is actually a really good actress in comparison, especially to the lead actress in here, who is Blanca Marlash. I'm probably mispronouncing, but there's a producer interview on here, a ton of great stuff. Special feature wise. So if you are a fan of this, I would highly recommend this release. There's also a slipcover version. You got the disc artwork too, and then there's reversible artwork, which I don't really like the reversible artwork quite as much, but yeah, the cover art I think is amazing. Like, this would be an instant impulse buy anytime for me. But yeah, not a good film, but it has its moments, and the special features are pretty much the main reason I'm going to keep that in the collection. And a good release, though, from Severin. I like what Severin does as a company. They put out some really good films and releases. I'm not a fan necessarily of the film, but it's a quality release for it. And next up is Evil Bong 666. Oh, one more thing I want to say, too. A lot of people talk about how they worked with Lucio Fulci, and this was like the first film that he made after being really sick. He had hepatitis C, and he was, you know, very sick, and even doing this he was. And they talked about that and just working with him and everybody's experience with him. So that was pretty cool. Next up is Evil Bong 666 from Full Moon. They're already doing the next one, the 7th Evil Bong movie. They keep rolling them out. If you're a fan of this franchise, you'll enjoy it. It's the same kind of stuff. Yeah, E.B. is back. She comes from Sexy Hell. And there's this chick right here who takes over the head shop, and she wants to take over the world and turn into hell. The devil, she goes to Sexy Hell and brings some people along, and it's just ridiculous and crazy. And then they have some different characters. Ginger Dead Man's in here too, but they have Ginger Weed Man is a new character, which I think is hilarious. You see Ginger Dead Man over there and Ginger Weed Man. Kind of reminds me of the Dave Chappelle character. Something, is it Tyrone Biggums or something like that? The crackhead guy. But it's cheesy, it's ridiculous, it's you know, kind of a stoner horror film. You know what you're getting yourself into for this franchise. So if you are a fan of it, you'll enjoy this one. If you're not a big fan of this franchise, you're probably not going to enjoy this one. But it's the same kind of stuff, and they're already making the next one, which I think is going to be available on Blu-ray anytime now. So, you know, I will say this: Full Moon is smart. They do a lot of good, you know, kind of advertising, production, promotion, and they keep rolling them out. So if they have a franchise like, you know, Killjoy, Ginger Dead Man, Evil Bong, they'll keep, you know, for the fans, they'll keep making more of them. So I appreciate that for Charles Band. And there are some special features in here too, which one of the things I liked was that they talk about the actress Robin Sidney in here. So I like that too. It was a good, you know, kind of behind the scenes, seeing what she has to go through for the different characters that she plays, breaking into sexy hell, smoke of hell, behind the scenes. So yeah, if you're a fan, good special features too. Next up from Artsploitation Films is Red Christmas, which is an Australian Christmas horror movie, which I enjoyed. This came out right around the same time as Better Watch Out, which everybody raved about that one. I think that one didn't live up to the hype. In fact, I prefer Red Christmas, but I feel like I'm one of the only people that prefers this one over Better Watch Out. This stars Dee Wallace. It's kind of set, I guess, in a secluded, maybe outback area of Australia where there's this secluded house, and on Christmas there's a family there. They're all, you know, going to celebrate, and they have a visitor who looks like this. He has his face is kind of bandaged up, and he's wearing like this black cloak kind of thing, robe, and he's a visitor that has ties to the family, and it kind of turns into a fight for survival against this character, and it's revealed to who he is. It is formulaic, but I thought it was a lot of fun. It had some dark humor elements to it, and I love the reveal of what he looks like. I thought that was awesome. And there's one thing with a certain character towards the end of the movie. It was like they didn't need to go that route with that character. It was kind of disappointing in that aspect. But it has some cat and mouse ones. They're hiding from him, and you know, aspects like that to it. There's some good gore effects in here, good kills. One thing I felt like though, either the director or cinematographer or somebody was Quentin Tarantino-esque in the aspect that they had a clear foot fetish, because there's a lot of scenes where they show like feet and shoes, especially the bottoms of the shoes and feet and stuff like that. And even some of the scenes, I think in the special features, there's like a deleted scene and stuff like that, behind the scenes stuff, and there's another scene of that where there was feet present. I was like, there's so much of that that it's hard not to notice. It just made me think of like Quentin Tarantino, a lot of his movies where he has that aspect going on too. So either the director, cinematographer, somebody had a clear foot fetish in my opinion. But I enjoyed the heck out of this one. And one of the better Christmas horror movies for me. Again, I liked it much more than Better Watch Out. Although, again, I feel like I'm in the only person, I was going to say the slim minority in that, but I think I'm like the only person who prefers this one. But I dig it. And if you like low-budget Christmas horror, I would recommend Red Christmas. And next up is Leatherface. This is the new one. I heard so much hate for this, and I freaking really enjoyed the heck out of it. I'm not going to say I quite loved it. I would have loved it. They take a different turn, but the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise is so mixed up as far as timeline and characters and things like that, especially Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D. That kind of added another, like, you know, stuff that mixed everything up. But this is, the directors here are Julian Maury and Alexandre Bustillo, who directed Livid and Inside, which are two amazing French horror movies that I would highly recommend. Inside is like one of my all-time favorite horror movies as a French film. They actually recently did an American remake of it, which I haven't seen that one yet, but I haven't heard good things. But the French film Inside is just one of the bloodiest, most awesome horror movies ever for me, and I really enjoyed Livid too. So I was expecting good things, even though a lot of people hated it. And when the trailer came out, people were hating on the trailer, and I thought the trailer looked great. And I thought it was in competent hands with those directors and the things that they've done. They've shown they can do great things with horror. Again, this takes a different turn for the franchise, especially for the character of Leatherface. Kind of an origin story, backstory of you know, him growing up in this crazy, violent family, and then he gets taken to this school, kind of like a reform school, for crazy young kids, and he tries to break out of there with a couple other people. And there was one thing that was a little bit Baby Firefly-esque with one of the characters. But I like the supporting cast in here too. Lily Taylor, who is always good. She's been around for forever. There's a couple other people I'm trying to find. Stephen Dorff, who I think he's like the sheriff in here. He was good too. It's gritty, it's dirty, it's interesting, and I even now, I still think about, like, I have mixed feelings on what they did with his character, but I like that they took a chance, tried something new and different, and I really enjoyed a ton of this movie, how the gore effects were, the kills, how dirty and gritty it was, and I love the family in here too. I love especially Lily Taylor, who was great as the matriarch right there of the family. And there was like an alternate ending, and I did not care for that alternate ending at all. So I'm glad they went with the ending that they did. I enjoyed it. Give it a chance. I know a lot of people hated on it, but much better, way better than Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D. Much better than the reviews give it credit for. I think a lot of people hated on it, partly in reason for what they did with the character. But again, I don't love what they did with it, but I appreciate they tried something new and different. And yeah, I want to see more what these directors do, because again, at least Livid and Inside are just incredible horror movies. Next up is Friend Request. Yeah, this one, not to be confused with Unfriended, which initially I got them kind of mixed up. Unfriended is a found footage one. I thought that was terrible. Garbage of a movie. I'm not a big fan of the found footage genre personally. I feel like it's kind of cheap and just being beaten into the ground at this point with nothing new idea-wise. Very few decent ones out there. I like the Den, which is kind of similar to Unfriended, but actually good. The Den is a decent one. But this one is kind of has some social commentary with technology and stuff like that, and Facebook, and Friend Request is kind of like a curse movie, a little bit reminiscent of The Ring, but nowhere near that level. It's basically this girl who friends this one loner girl who doesn't have any friends. In fact, when she adds her on Facebook, she's her only friend. And then the one kind of outcast girl right there feels betrayed by her, so she essentially kills herself and kind of takes revenge with this curse on her. And it all kind of comes full circle and plays out. Way better than Unfriended. If I were to rate this movie, I would give it a 7. I would watch this again. I plan to watch it again. I think a lot of people just unfairly crapped on it and bashed on it. It's formulaic in a lot of aspects and regards, but it's definitely one of the better ones of its ilk, especially of recent years. I feel like there's a lot of ones that kind of use a similar theme here, and again, way better than Unfriended. Again, I like the lead actress too. I like the kind of the dark tones to the movie throughout. Yeah, and then especially towards the end of the movie, definitely felt like the thrills were good. The pacing was good. It had some good mounting tension throughout. Some creepy scenes. Especially there was a scene towards the end of the movie in the hospital. And there was, I think, a scene in the elevator that was pretty creepy. So I definitely enjoyed this one more than I thought I would. Like initially I thought it was going to be like, you know, below average, and for me, I would take this over the Bye Bye Man, I would take this over the last, the Rings, Unfriended by far, so in that kind of realm, but I think people just unfairly crapped on it, and I'd say give it a chance. It's not necessarily great, but for me, I appreciate it, and I liked it, and I don't care, I don't feel bad about it. Next up, it's not a guilty pleasure, I just enjoy it. And next up is Annabelle Creation. I enjoyed Friend Request better than Annabelle Creation too. I feel like I'm in the minority there, and I'm okay with that. I will say Annabelle Creation is probably a little bit better than the first Annabelle movie. I like the cast. I like the reveal towards the end with the lady in there too. I thought that was creepy and good. And there are some creepy elements, but it's way too reliant on jump scares, and it's way too formulaic. Nothing too new there. It's basically like the school of orphan girls, and they kind of take them in, and there's the nun. I wish they would have played her role up a little bit more. And I like the lead guy in here, Anthony LaPaglia, who's been around for a while. He was really good in Innocent Blood, which is also, this is a Warner Brothers release, but that was a Warner Archive release. A great vampire comedy movie and a really underrated movie in general. Check out Innocent Blood. Hilarious and awesome. Don Rickles is in there. There's a bunch of other recognizable people, but Anthony LaPaglia is in there too. Some good special features on here too. If you're a fan of the film, you'll enjoy this release. It had that kind of dirty, dark, washed out hue, which works for it. And they kind of, it kind of comes full circle as far as the storyline for Annabelle at the end of the movie. So I like that aspect to it. But again, it just felt too formulaic, too reliant on jump scares, which I feel like that's just so cheap. So many movies do that these days, especially the mainstream popular ones. So yeah, it's basically this religious like orphanage. They go to this one home like in the middle of like, I guess it's like the desert kind of. And once they get there, this one girl starts hearing and seeing things, and there's the Annabelle doll, and you know, they have to fight to survive. Very, you know, generic, formulaic. A lot of people thought it was creepy. I didn't really think it was creepy. Again, I think it's the first Annabelle movie I thought was okay. It was decent. This one's just slightly better because I like what they did towards, especially the end, the suspense and the thrills, especially with the reveal of the older character and how it comes together with the Annabelle character and the doll and what happens with the girl. And so I appreciate that. It's still not necessarily a great movie, but it's one that I could see watching again too. Again, especially for like the third act. That was my favorite part of it by far. Next up is Zombie Night, which this is, I don't know, this is an Asylum release, which I'm not a huge fan of them. Very low budget, schlocky kind of stuff, kind of like a Sci-Fi Channel. I think they actually put out a lot of the Sci-Fi Channel movies. This is it's essentially an average zombie movie, and it has a decent cast here. Shirley Jones, Alan Ruck from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Daryl Hannah, Anthony Michael. So actors who were really big, especially a lot of the ones from 80s and stuff like that. And I think that was one of the biggest reasons to check this one out was the casting right there. And it's, again, pretty formulaic. There's a zombie outbreak. One of the things that I don't really care for was the zombies essentially at night. They decide to go to bed. They go back into the graves and they leave. So I was like, that's an aspect I really didn't care for. Some of these people are like, you know, hiding. And there's one character where like she says something that doesn't fit for the scene at all. It's just like, what? Why did she say that? So that was a thing that I didn't like too. But decent tension and suspense. Very generic zombie movie, but I like the cast. And it's decent. It's average. It's not terrible. It's not necessarily great. But I could see this popping this one in again every now and then. It's cheesy. I don't like that the zombies essentially leave at night to rest or go to bed or whatever they're doing. So I didn't really care for that aspect. You kind of get invested with certain characters, which I appreciate. And at the same time, I'm kind of torn with the way that they ended it. As like, do I like that? Was it a cop-out? But again, it's average. But I like the cheesiness of it. It's one of the better of the Asylum movies, one of the better of the Sci-Fi Channel movies. And I like the cast. So there you go. Those were the 8 horror Blu-rays that I picked up. Really enjoy Mother's Day. That's one of the top That's probably the best recommendation out of the bunch for me. I enjoyed Leatherface a lot. I would recommend Leatherface right there. And I would highly recommend the original Inside and Livid. And then Red Christmas, I enjoyed it more than most people seem to. Same with Friend Request. I couldn't really recommend Devil's Honey or Evil Bong unless you're a fan of the films and the franchise for Evil Bong already. Annabelle Creation, I really couldn't give necessarily a strong recommendation. If you're a fan of the franchise, you might appreciate it, but it's not great. This one, I wouldn't recommend it unless you like cheesy Sci-Fi Channel and Asylum movies. But I'd say check these ones out. But there you go. That's everything. Let me know if you've seen them. Which one was your favorite out of all of these? Leave me a comment or video response down below. Hope everyone's doing well. Take care.